And I do know that we are supposed to be starting at the hour, but some of us do take a little bit of time to log on. So we are going to give us a few minutes to get everything rolling. So that's why we have some trivia going right off the start here. So for our first question, which of these are used for seafood? A lot of us thought it was A or B, clownfish and sea star. The right answer for this first poll question is actually C, yellowfin tuna. So for our first question, so yellowfin tuna are often fished for seafood. Now, when we think of tuna, we probably think of those tiny little cans of tuna that we put on a sandwich. But did you know that tuna can actually grow to be 6 feet long? So that's as tall as a grown man. They can weigh up to 400 pounds. So they fish very big fish to fill those little cans of seafood. Number two says, how much of our planet is covered in oceans? So I did put a picture of the globe up here to give you guys a little bit of a hint.
Audio?
So do we think it's 67%, 71%, 83%, or 92%? How much of the earth is water? Good morning. I'm starting to see more cameras. It's so nice to see your faces this morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. As we're getting everything set up, if you want to go ahead and try to answer our trivia question. I'm seeing a lot of B's and C's so far. We're thinking 71 to 83. Okay, so our correct answer for this one is B. So about 71% of our globe is covered in water. But something really cool, our oceans are so deep that they actually hold 97% of the water on our planet. So even though it only covers 71%, almost all of the water in our planet is found in the oceans. So really important that we're learning about oceans today. Okay, we have one more trivia question to get us going here. Our third question is, how far can a salmon travel to make it to its spawning grounds? So something really cool about salmon is that they actually swim upstream to where they were born to respawn every year. How far do you think they swim to get there? Do they go 500 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, 3,000 kilometers, or 5,000 kilometers? And you know what? Normally I try to put miles in here too for our American friends, and I totally forgot today. So if you guys are joining from the US, I'm really sorry I did not convert these ones for you. You might have to do a little conversion yourself. Okay, oh, we have a real mixture of answers for this one. This is a hard question, guys. I think a lot of us are leaning towards C, 3,000. Also, I hope you like my picture. I always thought salmon were very cute. I like how red they are, so I was excited to find a good salmon picture for you. Okay, last chance to get your answers in, everyone. How far do we think they go?
I don't know.
Now, this one is a bit of a trick question. It really depends on the salmon. Some go farther than others, but they can go up to 3,000 kilometers. So if you were a salmon, that would be like running 50 kilometers a day. So that's like running an entire marathon every single day to get back to your spawning grounds. Pretty crazy. So they go very, very far. Awesome. Thank you very much for participating in my trivia to get us started this morning. That was really good practice because I know that our presenters do have a few poll questions throughout this event. Okay. So you got a little bit of practice answering those poll questions. And again, if you are joining from YouTube, you can participate as well. So my colleague Sarah will share your answers into our chat. And that leads me to other questions as well. If you guys have questions throughout the event, type them into the chat and our presenters will try to answer them as soon as they can. Now, I do see that a lot of us are able to do video today, which is awesome. So if you are on video and you would like to ask a question on video, you just have to use your little reaction. So there's a button at the bottom of your screen for reactions, and one of them raises your hand. So if you raise your hand, that lets us know that you have a question that you want to ask. And when we get a chance, we can call on you and you can try to unmute and ask your question. So 2 great ways to ask questions while we're presenting today. So with that, I would like to officially welcome you all to World Food Day. This is our primary event. So just based on the cameras that I'm seeing, I think we're all in the right place. We look like primary students. Hello, good morning. We do have a couple great presenters with us today from OceanWise and Green Learning. I will introduce them in just a little bit. But before we get started, I did want to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm joining from Amiskwaciwâskahikan. So this is colonially known as Edmonton, Alberta, and I think we have a few other schools joining from this area as well. So we're located on Treaty 6 territory, which is a traditional gathering place, traveling route to many people, including the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and the Nakota Sioux. Since we're joining on a virtual platform, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the traditional territories that we're joining from across Turtle Island and around the world. I would like everybody on this Zoom call today to take a moment to think about one action that they've taken today that could maybe have a positive or a negative effect on the ocean. So Indigenous groups around the world have been living in harmony with the land and water that we share for generations. And today we're going to work on shifting our relationship with water towards a more sustainable focus that aligns more closely with the traditional ways of thinking about this precious resource. I hope that by the end of the session, we all come away with a new appreciation for our oceans and the interconnectedness that it has in all of our lives. And when I say we are joining from across Turtle Island and around the world, we really are. And I did have a couple last minute signups for this event that I didn't quite get a chance to add in to this, but I hope that most of you guys are able to see your school up on the screen. So we have tons of schools from across Canada, across the world. I see Poland, Turkey, Pakistan, Peru, Kenya, the UAE, the US. So tons of schools across the world. Hopefully you guys can see yourselves up on that screen. So thank you very much for signing up today and taking the time to learn a little bit about sustainable seafood. I hope that we all learn a lot today. Just to give you guys an idea of what the event's gonna look like, we have two guest speakers joining us, Daphne from OceanWise and Katie from Green Learning. I'll introduce them in just a moment. When they're done their presentations, we will have some time at the end of the event to ask some questions and maybe share. So some of you guys might have little activity sheets with a little drawing section on them. We might have time for you to share us your little pictures at the end of the event if you have a picture of an ocean creature that you want to share with us. So if you guys do have some burning questions that we don't get to during the presentations, don't worry, we did save a bit of time at the end to get to those if we have a chance. All right, I would like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. So Daphne Austin is the online specialist for online learning and ocean literacy with OceanWise. She combines her expertise on the ocean from her Bachelor of Science in combined major of oceanography and biology at the University of British Columbia with years of conservation education and outreach. An expert in connecting students to the ocean, she has advanced environmental awareness for thousands of students across North America and beyond. So welcome, Daphne. And our second speaker today is Katie Biddy. Katie is passionate about helping educators bring meaningful climate change education to their classrooms. She is the engagement manager at Green Learning and has nearly a decade of experience teaching environmental education. She has a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Education and is an Ontario certified teacher. So welcome as well to Katie. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, with that, I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen and I will call on our first speaker, Daphne, to go ahead and get us started with our sustainable seafood.
Amazing. Well, I'm super excited to join you all today. And it's really amazing to see that we're joining from all over the world today. But there's something that really connects all of us, right? You might have even taken a couple sips of some this morning, and that is that water, right? Water travels all over the planet. And a lot of that, like we saw in the trivia at the beginning, is in the ocean. The ocean connects all of us together. So at some point, take a look in the participant list and see where people are joining from. You're connected to those folks all the way across the world today. And that's pretty special. But you know what? I am joining from an organization that I think is pretty cool. I work for OceanWise, which is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower communities and individuals to take action to protect and restore our world's oceans. So before we get started, I have one little thing I wanted to do to get us going. And that is, can you show me 5 fingers? Now, there's a lot that we can do to help the ocean and to help all of us. I want to see if you do a few things I already think of. So I have a water bottle or something to drink out of that I wash and reuse day after day. If you do that, take away a finger. I have used someone else's old clothing, maybe some hand-me-downs. Maybe I've bought some used clothing before. That's pretty amazing. If you do that, take away a finger. I like to try different foods. Maybe I try and find some foods that are easier to come by where I live. Maybe you try some local foods. That's amazing. Take away a finger. I like to learn more about how I can make a difference. I think we all can take away a finger for that one because we're all going to do that today. And I like to share what I know with others. I'm sure a lot of us like to talk to others, and that's a great way for us all to learn more and share what we're doing to help the ocean and the planet. So give yourselves a pat on the back there. Looks like you're all already doing a few things to help. But we're going to learn a bit more of that today. And one of the ways I wanted us to explore this is through sustainable seafood. Now, I'm actually joining you from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And that means I'm actually on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Peoples. And I'm really grateful that I'm able to live, learn, play, and connect with you all from their lands today, but also that we can think about how we can better respect the land, water, and sky around us as they have since time immemorial. Just like Rebecca was saying, there's a lot that we can think of on how we can respect all of nature. And one way that we can do that is enjoy its beauty and all the amazing life that it holds. But sometimes we might need to survive off of what's in the ocean as well. Raise your hand if you eat seafood or maybe other things from the ocean. It's not just the animals in the ocean. There's a lot of people that rely on seafood to support them. Now, there are some challenges that the ocean faces, and we'll talk about some of those a little bit more. But OceanWise is focusing on 3 challenges we see the ocean facing. Those are climate change, ocean pollution, and overfishing. You can see there's a bunch that we do for all of those, but really at the center is all of us. We all can make a big difference, especially when we all work together. So, first things first, I want to get to know you a little bit better. And then I want us to dive into seafood. So what would be on your dinner plate? I'd love for you to share with someone next to you if you're in a classroom, or if you would like, you can share in the chat. What does your dinner plate look like? Because we're joining from all over the world, so I am sure there's a wide variety of foods that we would be eating. You're welcome to continue showing in the chat, but I'll get our attention back to the front because I have a follow-up question, and that is not only what is on your dinner plate, but what kind of protein are you eating the most of? Do you think you eat mostly nuts, legumes like beans, seafood, or meat? What do you think? If you are in a classroom, you are welcome to use one to 4 fingers to show us your answer. So 1 for A, up to 4 for D. I'm seeing some votes for meat, D. I think a lot of us in Canada and North America eat a lot of meat compared to other places in the world. So I think that's probably a lot of those votes. We're seeing some nuts and beans or legumes as well. Yes. Oh, this is super cool. Thanks so much for sharing, everyone. You know what? It's great to see the diversity of where we're getting all this protein from, because seafood is really, really important to many people in the world. So, trivia question for you. Seafood is the primary source of protein for how many people in the world? So the most protein that they're getting, or a bulk amount of their protein, is coming from seafood. There's close to 8 billion people in the world. How many of those people are eating seafood? What do we think? Lots and lots of seafood. Lots of answers for C, 1.5 billion. Bit of a mix for the rest. The answer is actually, oh, I went too far. It didn't show me. The answer is D, 3 billion. There we go. 3 billion people. That's a lot of people relying on seafood. So it's really, really important. But what really is considered seafood? Well, there's a lot of different items that can be. Some are more popular than others in different areas, but take a look here. I'll give you 5 seconds to share with someone next to you which ones you know. We have, some might be easier than others. We have shark. We have jellyfish. Yes, jellyfish. Some jellyfish can get eaten. We have, this one might be hard. It's my favorite. It might look kind of like some feces, but it's not. That is a sea cucumber. We have some mussels, some gooseneck barnacles, and we have some squid. So there's lots of different animals that we might eat and consider seafood. But it's not just the animals. There's lots of other food that we might eat from the sea as well. A lot of that won't be considered seafood, but it is still food from the sea. So we have things like seaweed, some other kind of plants or algae that live close to the ocean. We have eggs and lots more algae and seaweed. There's a lot that we can take from the ocean. But sometimes we take too much. So what proportion or what fraction of the world's fish stocks are overfished, where we take too much? What do we think? 1/2, 1/3, 1/5, or 1/10? I'm seeing lots of guesses for 1/3 and 1/5. It's a tough decision. We'll give us a few more seconds.
We're really testing these kids with fractions. Welcome to
I know some of us might not be as familiar with fractions, but we'll do our best. You can just randomly guess if you want. In this case, we're gonna have 1/3 of the world's fish stocks being overfished. So that means 1 in 3. So imagine 3 of you together. That means that 1 out of every 3 of those fish stocks we're taking too many. That can be a big problem for the planet. And we at OceanWise like to try and find ways to help everyone learn more about helping the ocean, but still eating this seafood. Let's take a look.
OceanWise determines what is sustainable by looking at 4 different criteria. The first is the abundance of the fish. The second is whether the fish stock is well managed. The third is the impacts that it has on the habitat. And the fourth is bycatch, which is also known as the effects on non-target species. Sustainability depends on things like the exact species name, the area where it was caught, and the gear type that was used to catch it. So for that reason, we partner with businesses, figure out that research beforehand so that the consumer doesn't have to do it, and label the sustainable seafood directly on menus and packaging so that when people go out trying to find great things to eat, it's really easy for them to do so. You can look for the OceanWise symbol when you're dining out or buying seafood for assurance that it's ocean friendly.
So there's so many different ways that we can impact seafood, and some of that is by looking for symbols that actually can tell us more, because there's so many ways that we can harm seafood or even help it. But one of the things I wanted to focus on today is how we're catching that seafood. So there's many different ways. There's lots of different types of boats we might see, some really small and local, some might be wind powered, some might have big engines and carry hundreds of people to help catch the food. Some might even need to do a lot of work to even access the water. And some might be really, really large, maybe collecting a lot at one time. Take a look at this net. This is a massive purse seine, and it can collect fish in the millions if it really wanted to. It's huge. These are multiple football fields long sometimes. So these are huge. What that means is that we're not always very careful about which animals we're collecting. So I have a picture here of what came out of a fishing net. We see some scallop shells, we see some shrimp or prawns, we see some algae and some kelp, we see maybe some other kind of mussels and things. We also see, what is this right here, everyone? A shark. Yeah. So which of these do you think the fishermen were trying to catch? I'll give you 5 seconds to share. Shelby, do you want to share?
The shark.
So yeah, we see that shark. It might seem like we were trying to catch that because it's big and front and center. You know what? It's really hard because we have a lot of different animals here, right? In this case, I think they were actually looking to catch the shrimp, but the shrimp live close to the bottom. And that means as they're bringing their net along, they're catching a bunch of other creatures and life as well. Sometimes accidentally sharks as well. And sharks, they are caught as bycatch, those accidentally caught animals, very often. The poor sharks. So that bycatch, we want to try and reduce that. Now, right now in the world, how much fish do you think is caught as bycatch? 1 in every 10, 2 in every 10, 4 in every 10, or 6 in every 10? How much of our net is going to be bycatch on average? We've got a lot of guesses coming in from B all the way to D. No one thinks 1 in 10. This one can be a bit tricky. We might think it's gonna be super, super high. Not that we want it to be. In this case, it's going to be 4 out of 10. So we're not quite as high as we could be. Hopefully we can even get it lower than that to save lots of those accidentally caught fish. And the tools we use make a big difference. So this is kind of general, but in a lot of ways we have selective equipment or kind of targeted. We're trying to catch one type of animal. So you might be familiar with using a fishing line and a lure, or a fishing line with a hook with a special bait on the end that fish likes to grab. But we also have unselective, where we're just dragging our net through and hoping to catch what we want. So I have a bit of a quiz for you. Let's see if you're ready. Can you identify which are the more selective or more targeted? That means we're looking to only catch the fish or the species we want. So the first one is trawl fishing. Trawls are large conical nets, so they're kind of like an ice cream cone, and they are pulled behind a fishing vessel looking for multiple species that can occur in midwater or along the bottom. So are they looking to catch just one type of animal, or are they potentially going to catch a lot of others? I see we've got lots of guesses for unselective, or we're not as specific about what we're trying to catch. Yeah, we're getting some for selective. In this case, we have unselective. We're going to get a lot of bycatch, a lot of accidentally caught species like those sharks. What about this one? We've got these hand, line, and pull. So pull and line is the most selective way to catch tuna globally. Oceanwise recommends most tuna that's caught that way. What do we think? Are we being more selective? Are we being more specific? I see a lot of votes for yes, we are being more specific. We're trying to catch one animal. That is right. All right, one more. This is one we saw already, that purse seine. They're used to catch larger species like salmon, tuna, and herring. What do we think? Oh, we were quick to the draw on that one. Unselective is what we're getting, and that is correct. All right, this one's a bit trickier. All right, we're getting harder. Traps, pots, and nets. What do we think? So these are things we're gonna leave in the ocean and then come back and pull them up. They're used for species like crabs, lobsters, and octopus, sometimes accidentally. Ooh, we're getting a big mix of selective and unselective. This one can be a bit of a mystery, but you can see, take a look at this crab trap. You'll notice we see a lot of crabs and nothing else. So sometimes it can be a bit unselective, but usually this is more selective than a lot of other types. We might accidentally find an octopus when we don't mean to, but it's not as many as other methods. So last one, my friends, hand harvesting. We're diving down to collect those animals, putting them in a net that we're carrying and bringing them up to the surface. You can also use things like harpoons or things like that to collect as well. What do we think? We're in a lot of selective. That is correct. And it is among one of the most selective ways to fish. So well done, everyone. Give yourselves a nice pat on the back. This was a nice challenge for everyone today. There's so many amazing ways that we can try and have a smaller impact on seafood. Some of them are even really easy too. If we want to still use a net, sometimes we can have things like a turtle exclusion device. It's a trapdoor in a net for turtles. Super cool. I think super creative. That's a great way to kind of find some solutions to help certain animals. Also, animals like birds can get caught accidentally. So put some streamers out to try and scare away the birds to keep them safe. There are some easy ways for us to make a difference in the fishing industry. But how can you at home make a difference? Well, there's a lot of ways. A few of them we went over at the beginning, but here's a few others. Looking for sustainable seafood logos or other sustainable food logos can make a big difference. Now, we might not always be able to afford those items, but even to just be aware of them is great. And buying local and supporting local businesses is a great way for all of us to make a big difference for seafood and beyond. That can even have a big impact on climate change as well, reducing our carbon footprint. So you can help the seafood and the climate. And of course, telling others what you've learned, because the more we learn how we can help and make a difference. So I'm so glad that you all got to join me today. I'm going to be around for more questions and things like that. But if you want to learn more about seafood or more about the ocean in general, you can check out some of our resources on ocean.org. That is our website. But I'm going to swing it over to Katie, who has some amazing things to add on today for World Food Day.
And thank you very much, Daphne. And actually, I think even before Katie starts her presentation, there was one good question that came through that maybe we could answer quick before we keep going. Will the ocean run out of fish? So Grand Woodlands grade 4 class asked us, will the ocean ever run out of fish?
This is a great question. And I would say if we continue to fish how we are today, we probably would in a long time. And you know what? We're probably going to overfish certain species to extinction. Now, there's a lot of different animals out there, a lot of different seafood. And what is happening is there's a lot of creative minds, just like all of you, that are trying to find solutions so we can keep eating seafood and supporting people all over the world that need it to survive, but also making sure we have that food available for hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of years. So if you have cool ideas on how we can get seafood out of the ocean, but make sure we have them for future generations, share those ideas. Creative minds are going to make a big difference for all of that hope we have for the ocean.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. I'm going to pass it over now to Katie to go ahead and share with us her presentation. And
there we go. Always forget to click unmute. But fantastic. Thank you so much, Daphne. And your presentation is a great kind of lead into mine, because we're going to be talking. The presentation is called From Lunch Bag to Ocean. And Daphne just shared all about, all the different animals that live in the ocean that we rely on for food. But sometimes things that we use for our food can actually be harmful to our oceans. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that as I go through. So to kick it off here, I just want to share a little bit about Green Learning. So I work for Green Learning, and we're a nonprofit located in Canada. So if you're joining from Canada, you can check out our resources. And even if you're not joining from Canada, you can still check us out because a lot of what we have is designed for students all across the world. Now, we create free online education programs about energy, climate change, and the green economy that engage and empower students to create positive change for our evolving world. Our website is greenlearning.ca if you want to learn more or check out some of the different activities and programs we've got, all for free. So I can share that link in the chat once I'm done my presentation here as well. Now, just before I begin, I do want to acknowledge the land that I'm joining from today. So I am joining from what's now called Barrie, Ontario, Canada. I think in Rebecca's introduction slideshow, I saw that there was one school from Barrie. So if you're joining from Barrie, I'm not too far from you. But Barrie is on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, which include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. I also want to acknowledge that the Wendat Huron Nation occupied these lands prior to the middle of the 17th century as well. And like Rebecca said at the beginning, I always want to reflect on the decisions that I make and how they affect the land and water that I live, work, and play on. So to kick it off here, I know we kind of talked about what's on your dinner plate, but I'm just curious if you would share in the chat now, what are some of the things that you've eaten so far today? Or maybe depending on where you are, maybe it's not even lunchtime yet. Maybe you know what's in your lunch bag though. And you can just share some of the snacks or food that you have in your lunch bag in the chat now. And I'll open it up so I can see here. Awesome, I see. Okay, so toast with jam, very good. Waffles and strawberries, lucky you, that sounds delicious. Honey on toast. Okay, so we've got lots of people eating toast. Sounds like lots of breakfast foods were being shared here. Cereal, milk, goldfish, grapes, cheese string, very good. Apple, banana bread, eggs and toast. Shelby, I see you raised a hand. Would you like to share what you've eaten today?
I'm on an online school, so I don't really have any lunch bag.
Oh,
But
interesting.
what I did
okay.
what I had for recess snack was a granola bar.
Very good. Actually, that's perfect because we're going to talk about that. I see someone else in the chat said they had a granola bar as well. So you can see there's all sorts of different varieties of foods. And you can think about what you've eaten, but you can also think about what those foods are stored in or what they're packaged in. Now, not always, but a lot of the food that we eat tends to be packaged or even just stored in plastics. So those granola bars, a lot of the time, sometimes they have foil wrappers, but sometimes they're plastic wrappers. Sometimes even if you're just eating leftovers, maybe you made the meal the night before, but you're keeping it, we might store it in plastic Tupperwares. I've got some plastic wrap here or saran wrap to store things. Maybe if we're bringing like a cookie or a muffin in our lunch bag, you might wrap it up in that plastic wrap to keep it nice and clean. Even sometimes fruits and veggies we store in plastic wrappers to bring home from the grocery store. So plastic and food at this point in our world often go hand in hand. We use plastic to keep our food stored and safe. So why do we package so much of our food in plastics? Well, the number one reason is it keeps our snacks clean and safe. Like I just said, maybe you're bringing that muffin to school, but you don't want it to get dirty. So you wrap it in plastic to make sure that it stays clean in the plastic wrapping. Plastic also really helps with our busy and on-the-go lives. So gone are the days where you would, make a meal and then eat it right then and there. We're often at school, or maybe we're at sports practice, or maybe we're going to a relative's house. And so we transport food all over the place. So plastic allows us to wrap it so that we can move it around as we go on our day-to-day functions and do all the things that we need to do. Plastic is also really durable and waterproof, right? So again, I'm going to go back to my muffin example. You want to keep that muffin dry so that when you eat it, it's not all soggy, right? And plastic can help keep it dry. And finally, plastic generally is pretty cheap. So we might want to wrap our food in more sustainable or other materials, but plastic is really, really affordable, which makes it something that many people can use to wrap our foods. Now, I love this picture here. And in this picture, you can see that there is somebody has an orange in a plastic wrap. Now, this is what I would consider kind of a silly use of plastic because the orange grows on the tree with a peel all over it. And that peel does a fantastic job of keeping it clean and safe, the orange inside. It does a fantastic job of allowing us to move it around. It's waterproof, so it keeps that orange dry. And it doesn't cost a thing. Well, it doesn't cost any more than the orange. So this is kind of a really silly use of plastic because the orange already had a peel to do all these jobs for us. So as we've moved on in life, sometimes we're putting plastic in places that we really don't need to. Actually, in many circumstances, we're doing that. So we use all this plastic to keep our food safe so we can enjoy our snacks and our lunch. And where does it all end up? Well, actually, before I do that, maybe we can share in the chat now. I know I just popped one up there, but where does some plastic go? So after we're done using it, maybe it wrapped your granola bar and now we're done. Where would you put that plastic? And you can share in the chat here. Just think for a moment. Maybe if you're in a classroom, you can share with the people around you. Where does plastic go once we're done with it? Okay, yes, some good answers coming in. I see recycle came up. The garbage or recycling, landfill or the ocean. Very good. Lots of great ideas there. That's exactly it. So some plastics can be recycled, and recycled means that we can sort of use those plastics again. We can turn them into a different plastic to be used for another purpose. Not all plastics can be recycled though. So only certain types of plastics can actually be recycled to be used as plastic again. So for those plastics that cannot be recycled or just simply aren't recycled, a lot of it ends up in the landfill, like some of you mentioned. And landfills are areas where we collect all of our trash. So there's specific areas where we, sort of dump it all and it fills up. The reason it's called a landfill, it fills the land up with that trash or that garbage. And a lot of plastic ends up in landfill. And finally, sometimes, unfortunately, it will end up as litter. So that means it's neither put in the specific landfill or recycled. It's just dropped or discarded. Or it might run off. And when I say run off, I'm talking about it would be carried, litter would be carried by water. So when it rains or maybe it snows or anytime that there's water sort of falling from the clouds above, we have what happens is we see runoff. So that would be water traveling across our land. And if there happens to be litter or trash, that can be picked up by that water and transported to our local bodies of water, or unfortunately, a lot of the time, it may even end up in the ocean. So you can see this picture here. This is a picture of a storm drain. So when there's a lot of rain, it carries all that trash, all that litter, a lot of that plastic, and it can land in the storm drain. But the problem with these storm drains is if that plastic gets into the water there, a lot of the storm drains head straight to our bodies of water. So I have something really cool to show you, and I'm actually going to share the link in the chat as well so that you can try this for yourself later if you'd like. But it's something called the plastic tracker. And what the plastic tracker does is it will show us where our plastic might end up if we were to drop it right here where we live now. So I live, like I said, in a city called Barrie, Ontario, Canada, and I can put my location in here. And what the plastic tracker is going to do is it's going to imagine that I dropped a piece of plastic right here, and it's going to map out how that piece of plastic might travel through our waterways. So this starts in a lake called Lake Simcoe. It's going up through Lake Huron, Georgian Bay through Lake Huron. These are a lot of the Great Lakes. If you're from Canada, you might recognize some of these bodies of waters. Or if you're from another part of the world, you might have heard from about the Great Lakes as well. So there, my little piece of plastic that I dropped here in Barrie has traveled all through these lakes, through Buffalo. Now it's back in Lake Ontario. It's kind of taking a really long journey, traveling through a riverway here. If I have any classes joining from Montreal or from Quebec, my piece of plastic is now traveling through your waterways. It's going to speed it up for us here because it made it into the St. Lawrence River. And check this out. Now it's just going all over the place in the ocean. And you can see here that sort of blue area is the Pacific garbage patch. And look. So after all this time, I dropped a piece of plastic, you can imagine, here in Barrie, Ontario, and it's taken this big, long journey and actually ended up in the Atlantic Ocean. So let me just put this. Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. I see Rebecca shared my link for me. So you can try this out to see what would happen to a piece of plastic if you happen to discard it where you live. Now, that garbage patch that the plastic tracker showed us is called the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And I just wanted to show a couple pictures of this. The garbage patch is where all of kind of the plastic that ends up in the ocean, or not all of it, but some of it collects because of ocean currents. So it kind of, the ocean, the way the ocean works, it pushes it all into one big patch. And the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is a really, really big kind of chunk of floating plastics. Now, the sources of plastic waste in the ocean, you might think that they would come from marine sources. So maybe some of the stuff Daphne was talking about, maybe those plastic fishing nets or something. But marine sources only account for about 20% of the plastic waste that's sort of floating around in the ocean. The rest, the other 80%, does come from urban sources. So those are things like our snack wrappers that have slowly washed their way into the ocean over time. So what can we do? If we want to make a difference and reduce the amount of plastics that are ending up in the ocean, we have to really start to think about how we can change our world to stop being so reliant on plastics. How can we find unique ways or cool new ways to reduce how much plastic we use and waste? So there's a few things you can do. You can always refuse to use plastic. So maybe you look for alternatives that are more environmentally friendly. I have an awesome little beeswax wrap that I wrap some of my snacks in, and I can use it over and over and over. So instead of using saran wrap in our house, we try and use those beeswax wrappers instead. You can reduce. So maybe you can't say no altogether, but maybe you say, I'm only going to use plastic wrap sometimes or for certain products. You can reuse. So maybe you use a plastic Tupperware, but you use it every day. So it's not just ending up in the landfill or the recycling or maybe the ocean. You can repurpose. So you think of new, once you're done using a plastic for its first purpose, you might come up with a new way that it could be used. And finally, if you have to, and you are able to, do your best to recycle plastics instead of just sending them to that landfill. Now, I just want to share really quick, at Green Learning, we have something called the Eco 360 Challenge that's designed to help, basically the challenge is to think of cool new ways we can reduce plastic waste. So anybody, no matter where you're joining from, you can check out the Eco 360 Challenge to learn more about what it's all about. But if you're in Canada, you can actually enter into the Eco 360 Challenge this year if you have a cool idea about reducing plastic waste, and you can be entered to win a cash prize. So unfortunately, that's only for my participants joining from Canada today. But like I said, everyone is welcome to check out our Eco 360 resources and learn more. So that's it for me here. And I will pass it back over to Rebecca. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. I learned a lot about plastic, and I'm very excited to try the plastic tracker to see where mine would end up, because I think mine actually would end up in a different, mine I think ends up going up north instead of through the Great Lakes. So yes, I'm interested to see what that would look like if I tried it. I think all of our friends joining us are hopefully excited to try it as well. I do have one more fun thing for us all to try while we're all together here on the call, and it is, what ocean creature are you? So we have made this little quiz for you. There's a few questions you have to answer about the ocean, a little bit about the event that we did today. So if you are joining from a computer and you have a phone, you can scan that QR code. If you don't have a phone, just click on that last link that I put in the chat. So you click on that link and it will bring you to a little quiz. Now, if we have classes joining us, because I do see we have a few classes, you guys can answer it as a group. So when you get to the end, it will ask how many people are participating. You just put the number of kids that you have in the group. Now, the tricky thing is you guys do have to agree on some answers. So if you're answering it as a group, you guys might have a little bit of disagreement on what you want to answer. But I would love to see what your classes come up with. If you don't want to answer it as a class and you want to answer it later when you get home, I will send out this link as well with my follow-up email after the event. So anybody watching today, if you want to try the quiz and figure out what sea creature you are, you guys can try it when you get home tonight. Once you guys are finished the quiz, I think it's only 6 questions. It's really quick. I would love for you to pop in the chat and let me know what you got as your answer. So far, we've had a really big mix of creatures from kelp all the way to sharks. So it'd be very cool to see what everybody got if you guys get a chance to finish it up. I also have a few links from our friends here. So Waves of Change shared with us, well, I guess Ocean Wise shared with us our Waves of Change link. So Waves of Change, both of our speakers did mention it quickly at the end of their presentations. It's our collaborative project that all of us work together on to try to enhance ocean health and ocean education across Canada. So if you want to learn more about that, you can follow that link there. I also have some information for OceanWise. So if you want more ocean education in your classroom, you can go ahead and follow that link to get information, to get more education from our speaker, Daphne at OceanWise. And the Ripple Effect is a link that we have for our green learning friends. So tons of link in the chat today. Take some time to check all of them out when this event is done, because there's lots of good stuff that you guys can keep learning about this. Now, we are technically supposed to end at 11:45, but I think we can all stay for a few more minutes. If we have any questions from any of our participants for our speakers, now is your chance to get those questions out. So if any of our classes joining have any last questions that they have about sustainable seafood or plastics in the ocean, let us know in the chat, and we do have some time to get those answers from our speakers while we do our final closing up. And I do see a couple of you guys are already letting me know we have a dolphin and a coral, which is awesome. Kataro, it looks like you have a question. Did you want to unmute and ask your question?
It's not really a question, but...
Comments are fine too.
Yeah, just a comment. I am supposedly an orca.
Oh, you got an orca, a killer whale. That's a good one. We already have quite a mixture.
I can get Katie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you guys are going to be out there hunting together. Okay, Shelby, what about you? I think you're unmuted, but I still can't quite hear you. Oh, I see you're sharing us a picture of some fish. Thank you for sharing it. Yes, that's wonderful. As well, I do think some of our classes did work on that worksheet. So if anybody has a worksheet that they'd like to share, you're welcome to come up to camera and share it with us. That's totally fine. We would like to see what you guys worked on. While we're just finishing up with this quiz and waiting for any questions that some of you may have, I do have one question that I like to ask our speakers is what brought you to the point that you're at today? So you guys are both educators about the environment and the ocean. I would love to hear from both of you about how you got to this point.
I guess I can go first. I have always loved nature and loved animals, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do through high school or university, and so I kind of took a bunch of biology classes and chemistry classes and physics classes around science, and I really realized I do like animals and life on the planet. And so I started learning more about that, but I also really realized I love seeing how animals impact the ecosystem and how the ecosystem can impact animals. So I actually looked at how the ocean, because I realized I love the ocean, how it impacts all of the life around the planet, including us. And I realized that as much as I love wearing a lab coat, I'm not very good in a lab. And as much as I love doing research online, I'm not very good at that either. But I really love and think that I'm good at talking to other people. And so I was very shy as a young kid. I would never talk in public, but through practice, I've been able to share what I know about the ocean with others. And that is my favorite thing.
Wonderful. And before I call on Katie, I do think that our Mrs. Barkwell's class, it looks like you guys do have some worksheets that you were working on. So I invite you, if you guys would like to, while Katie's answering this question, you can come up one at a time and hold them up to the camera so that we can see what you guys worked on. We would love to get a closer look at them. So feel free to come up to the camera and let us see while Katie shares her story.
Awesome. Oh yeah, I'll see it too.
Yeah, now we have to try not to get distracted by these amazing pictures while you let us know how you got to where you are.
No, that's fantastic. I'm glad to see them too. But yeah, my story is very similar to Daphne's. I really loved nature and wildlife and animals growing up, and I was very curious about them. I'd love to learn all about animals. Oh, I love your worksheet. So I decided to study something called zoology in school, which is the study of animals. And very similar to Daphne, I loved it, but I learned pretty quick that I too wasn't really a lab coat type of person. I loved working with people. So as much as I'm interested in animals, I love working with students like yourselves and all sorts of different people. So that led me into my career in education.
Awesome. Wonderful. Yeah, it sounds like we kind of got both have similar stories leading here.
Yep.
Also, I am loving how colorful these pictures are. Are you guys seeing these?
They're amazing. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
And such a mixture. Like, it's just like even getting our answers from our quiz in. We have such a mixture of sea creatures joining us and in art.
Thank you for sharing. Those were fantastic.
Yeah, those are awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, I have one last quick reminder before I do a final question for our two speakers. So if you are an educator watching today and your students really enjoyed this event, or if you're a student and you'd like to do another similar event with us, you can let your teacher know. We do have Going to Bat for Canada's Bats, which is coming up at the end of the month. It is our spooky Halloween event. So you guys get to come with your costumes on. We're going to learn about how great bats are, how they're not scary at all, and they're really good for the environment. So if you think that you might want to join us for that, you can follow that link in chat, or you can go ahead and scan the QR code that's on the screen. We have one more question that I see popped up in the chat, and it's what can we do more to help our planet? Now, I know you guys did touch on this a little bit during your presentations, but Daphne, did you maybe want to kind of give us a little quick summary of what our students watching today can do to help the planet?
There are so many things, and I think that's one of the things that makes it amazing is there's so many choices we can make that can make a big difference. But really, one that I think is easiest and most accessible to everyone is to share what you know or what you're doing to help with the people around you. Because the more that everyone learns about the ocean or learns about how we can care, we're going to start to care more and want to make more decisions that help the ocean and the rest of the planet. So share what you've learned today, share what you know, share what you drew today. There's so much that we can do and help each other with sharing.
Awesome, thank you. And Katie, how about you? Do you have any words of wisdom for our students that want to help the planet?
Yeah, well, I think you're already doing it by showing up and listening and connecting with other students. Like Daphne said, we're already all working together to build a better world, which is amazing. And never forget the power of connecting with other people to make a difference. I think because it's World Food Day, the one other tip that I would suggest, and it's something I've been trying to do at home, is try and reduce how much food waste you end up having. So the way that I do this is I carefully think about planning my meals maybe for the week. Maybe you can talk with your family and think about at the end of the week, maybe you want to reduce how much of your food goes into the waste or into the compost. That's a really easy way. Basically, it's just only buy what you need. Only buy the food that you need to eat for that week. And it's a good way to reduce your impact on the environment. So that's one concrete thing you could maybe be challenged to try just because it is World Food Day.
And I would love to add to that, my favorite food is leftovers.
Yep.
Leftovers are always a great option for food to make sure we don't have that waste.
For sure. And I feel like when I used to talk about waste with my students, the thing that always, I think, kind of blew their minds a bit is when you throw something away, it doesn't go away. You have to go put it in a landfill. It doesn't disappear. So don't just think you put it in the garbage can and it's gone forever, right? Somebody has to deal with that, and it likely will end up in our ocean. So we're trying not to make as much waste as possible, but leftovers for sure. I did have one comment I just wanted to touch on before I say goodbye. Kai, I'm really, really sad that you can't join us for our Bats event because you have been wonderful in the chat, and I'm very sad you can't join us. But if anybody here is like Kai and wants to join our event but can't do it live, you are welcome to join us on YouTube. So if you follow that link that I shared, there's also a link to sign up to watch us on YouTube, and you can watch it at any time. You still get all the education materials. Unfortunately, we won't get to hear you live in the chat, but we still get to at least share some of our expertise with you. So that's also an option for all of us joining. We're almost right at the end of the hour. Sorry we went over time, guys, but I think there was too much great information today and too much awesome questions. I wanted to thank both of our speakers for joining us today. I certainly learned a lot, so I hope the kids learned a lot. And I wanted to say thank you to all of the students that joined us today. I really appreciate seeing you. It was awesome to get these events back up and running this fall, and I hope that we see you guys all again soon. Shelby, you've got something you want to share with us while we're hopping off the call? Go ahead.
I quickly made another picture, and it has a little piggy right here.